The large intestine is the final stage of the gastrointestinal tract. It is a large tube that escorts waste from the body. It is responsible for absorbing water and vitamins while converting digested food into feces and escorts waste from the body. It extends from the ileum to the anus, and is approximately 1.5 meters long, which is shorter than the small intestine, but it is thicker in diameter, which is about 2.5 inches wide, which gives it its name, large intestine. It is made up of 4 tissue layers: the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis, and the serosa. The mucosa is the innermost layer, and it secretes mucus into the hollow lumen of large intestine to lubricate its surface and protect it from rough food particles. The next layer is the submucosa, which is the layer of blood vessels, nerves, and connective tissues. The layer after that is the muscularis. This contains the visceral muscle cells that contract and move the large intestine, producing haustra, which is a lumpy pouch-like structure. The final layer, or the outermost layer, is the serosa, which secretes watery serous fluid to lubricate the surface of the large intestine, which protects it from friction between abdominal organs and the surrounding muscles and bones in the lower torso. This secretes mucus and absorbs water fluids and salts from the gut contents. It is divided into 5 sections: the appendix, the cecum, the colon, which is subdivided into 4 parts, which will later be discussed, the rectum, and the anal canal or anus. So as stated before, the large intestine consists of several parts: the appendix, the cecum, the 4 colons, the rectum, and the anus. Let's discuss each row in each section thoroughly. Let's start with the worm-like tip of the intestine. The appendix is up first. It extends from the inferior end of the large intestine cecum, a narrow pouch of tissue which resembles a worm, giving it the alternate name vermiform appendix. It is located in the right iliac region of the abdomen, and it is about 4 inches long and 1/4 inch wide. It is also made up of the 4 tissue layers like the rest of the digestive tract. The presence of lymphoid tissue suggests a role in the immune system as well as the digestive tract, but there is no exact function for the appendix. Next, we have the cecum, which is shown in yellow. The cecum is the cul-de-sac at the beginning of the large intestine. It descends from the union of the ileum and the large intestine. It provides a space for the mixing of bacteria with partially digested food from the small intestine from feces. It is a short, pouch-like region between the ascending colon and appendix, located in the lower right quadrant of the abdominal cavity, inferior to the ileum. Also made up of 4 tissue layers. The innermost layer, the mucosa, is made of smooth mucous membrane with many goblet cells. The goblet cells secrete mucus to lubricate and protect the surface of the cecum. Absorption of nutrients is performed by the epithelial cells, forming the surface of the mucous membrane. Surrounding the mucosa is the submucosa layer that contains the blood vessels and nerves that support the surrounding tissues. The next layer, the muscularis, contains bands of smooth muscle tissue arranged in longitudinal and transverse bands to contract the walls of the cecum. Contraction of the muscularis results in the mixing of chyme with bacteria and the propulsion of chyme into the ascending colon. The outermost layer of the cecum is the serosa, a simple layer of squamous epithelial tissues. The serosa produces a silic for serous fluid that lubricates the exterior of the cecum and protects it from friction with the surrounding tissues of the abdomen. It plays a role in the digestive system by aiding in the formation of feces. The cecum partially digested food, known as chyme, passes through the small intestine where it is digested and most of its nutrients are absorbed. The ileocecal sphincter at the end of the small intestine opens and closes to allow small amounts of chyme to enter the cecum at the beginning of the large intestine. Chyme is next mixed with bacteria by contractions in the walls of the cecum before being pushed upward into the ascending colon. Now, finally into the colon, the fun part. The ascending colon is shown in green. The ascending colon is one of the 4 major regions of the colon. It carries feces from the cecum superiorly along the right side of the abdominal cavity to the transverse colon. Bacteria digest the transitory fecal matter in order to release vitamins. The intestinal wall absorbs water, nutrients, and vitamins from the feces and deposits these materials into the bloodstream. It is a hollow tube about 2.5 inches wide and about 8 inches long, with many small pouches along its length to increase surface area. As feces passes through the ascending colon, bacteria digest the waste material that the body can't digest and releases vitamins K, B1, B2, and B12. The ascending colon rises superiorly toward the liver, but turns about 90 degrees left at the hepatic flexure. The hepatic flexure is the right angle bend in the colon that connects the ascending colon and the transverse colon. That brings us to the transverse colon, shown in the pinkish purple color. The transverse colon is the longest region of the colon. It is located between the ascending and descending colon. Much of the absorption and feces formation of the colon takes place here. It is a hollow tube about 2.5 inches wide and 18 inches long. Many haustra are formed in the walls of the transverse colon by contraction of the smooth muscle of the intestinal walls. Transverse colon mixes feces by contracting small regions of the intestinal wall in a process known as segmentation. Waste releases vitamins and a few nutrients which are absorbed through the walls of the colon and uses peristalsis to push the feces along the length. The colon turns sharply toward the inferior direction at the splenic flexure before continuing to the descending colon. The splenic flexure is a sharp bend of the colon where the transverse colon joins the descending colon, located under the spleen. Now for the descending colon, shown in blue. The descending colon is the third and penultimate segment of the colon. It transports feces from the transverse colon inferiorly along the left side of the abdominal cavity to the sigmoid colon. Feces passed through this colon are stored until they are ready to be eliminated from the body. The walls absorb water, remaining nutrients, and vitamins from the feces, depositing these valuable substances into our bloodstream. It is a hollow tube that is about 9 to 10 inches long and roughly 2.5 inches wide. It contains haustra along its length that increases surface area and helps move feces through the colon. By the time feces reaches the descending colon, most of the vitamins, water, and nutrients have been extracted by the ascending and transverse colon, leaving mostly waste products behind. It helps to propel feces toward the sigmoid colon and rectum and out of the body by the smooth muscle tissue contraction. The descending colon leads directly to the sigmoid colon, which is shown in the lighter blue. The sigmoid colon is the final segment of the colon. It transports fecal matter from the descending colon to the rectum and anus. Feces stored here until they are ready to be eliminated from the body through the anal canal. The intestinal wall plays a small role in the absorption of water, nutrients, and vitamins from feces. It is a hollow tube that is about 2.5 inches in diameter and 16 inches long. A band of smooth muscle tissue contracts to form haustra along the walls of the sigmoid colon to increase surface area. It connects to the descending colon near the iliac crest in the left iliac region of the abdominal cavity. Feces entering the sigmoid colon have completed most of their bacterial fermentation and most of the water and vitamins absorbed from them in the prior sections of the colon. The muscularis in the sigmoid colon controls the expulsion of feces during defecation. It is clinically important because it is commonly used to screen for and prevent colon cancer, since it is the region of the colon closest to the body's exterior. The sigmoid colon curves medially and anteriorly toward the midline, then abruptly turns about 90 degrees to face inferiorly, forming the rectum. Almost towards the end of the large intestine, we have the rectum, which is shown in purple. The rectum is the final segment of the large intestine that connects the colon to the anus. It stores fecal matter produced in the colon until the body is ready to eliminate the waste through the process of defecation. It is a hollow muscular tube about 8 inches long and 2.5 inches wide at most. Feces enters this rectum from the sigmoid colon, where they are stored until they can be eliminated through defecation. The walls of the rectum absorb some water and return it to the blood supply. As feces accumulates and fills the rectum, they exert increasing pressure on the rectal walls. The distension of the rectum stimulates stretch receptors in the rectal walls to send nerve impulses to the brain. These impulses are integrated in the brain and result in feelings of discomfort and mounting pressure to emptying the rectum through defecation. They also cause relaxation of the smooth muscle of the internal anal sphincter to allow defecation to proceed. The rectum tapers slightly before ending at the anus or anal canal. The anus, or the anal canal, is the final segment of the gastrointestinal tract. It acts as the orifice that feces pass through during defecation. It is a short tube at the end of the rectum which ends at the body's exterior. It is about 1 inch long and varies in diameter depending on how distended it is. The superior end of the anus is continuous with the tissue of the rectum and is lined with simple columnar epithelial tissue, which forms folds known as anal columns, with valves known as anal valleys between the folds. At the inferior end of the anal columns is the pectinate line, where the tissue lining the anus changes from simple columnar epithelium to stratified squamous epithelium. The stratified squamous epithelium is non-keratinized inside the anus, but becomes keratinized epithelium as it approaches the body's exterior. The change from the non-keratinized to the keratinized occurs at a visible landmark known as Hilton's line. Two sphincter muscles, the internal and external anal sphincters, surround the anus and control its opening and closing. The internal anal sphincter is made from visceral muscle and is continuous with the muscularis layer of the rectum. Closer to the body's exterior, the external anal sphincter is made of skeletal muscle and is continuous with the surrounding skeletal muscles of the perineal region. A layer of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium covers the external anal sphincter and is continuous with the skin of the perineal region. The anus plays an important role in controlling the elimination of solid waste through defecation. When the rectum is empty or slightly filled, both the internal and external anal sphincters remain closed to hold waste materials inside the rectum and prevent defecation. Once enough fecal matter fills the rectum to exert pressure on the rectal walls, pressure receptors in the rectum send signals to the brain, which in turn sends signals to relax the internal anal sphincter. The external anal sphincter continues to hold feces in the rectum until voluntary signals from the cerebral cortex cause it to relax during the defecation reflex. And that pretty much sums up the large intestine anatomy. The functions of the large intestine are to get rid of food left over after the nutrients are removed from it, bacteria and other waste. Liquid and salt is removed from the waste as it passes through the colon. The waste makes its way to the sigmoid where it is stored. Once or twice per day, when the body is ready for a bowel movement, the waste is dumped into the rectum and prepares for defecation. Some diseases and conditions of the large intestine are colorectal cancer, polyps, colon dysplasia, and spastic colon. Colorectal cancer occurs in the colon or lower colon near the rectum. It is the most common cause of cancer-associated death. 1 out of 20 people will get colorectal cancer in their lifetime. There was estimated in 2015 that there will be 93,090 new cases in the United States alone. Polyps are abnormal growths of tissue in the inner lining of the colon or rectum that are benign. They can sometimes turn into cancer, and there are several types of polyps. Adenomatous polyps can change into cancer, and they're considered precancerous. Hyperplastic polyps and inflammatory polyps are non-cancerous, but all polyps are removed just to be safe. Colon dysplasia is when a spot of cells on the lining of the colon look abnormal under a microscope, as shown in the picture. It is non-cancerous but can change into cancer over time. People with diseases such as ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease for many years are susceptible to colon dysplasia. Spastic colon or irritable bowel syndrome is more than a colon problem. It is the spontaneous contractions or loss of movement of muscles in the small and large intestines. This concludes my presentation on the large intestine, and I would like to give thanks to these lovely people for its help with the information given.